Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone online. Great to be here with you on this Sunday afternoon. And thank you to the Tourism Linkages Council for bringing us all together this afternoon. The Knowledge Network of the Tourism Linkages Council has asked us to talk today about a really exciting and interesting topic, which I think is on a lot of people's minds: how tourism has impacted other sectors. And essentially, that's about how can we integrate tourism with other sectors of the economy. So here today to talk to us about this and to have a really powerful discussion, we have Aswad Morgan, who is a director of the Morgans Group, and I'm going to introduce them all properly in a minute. We have Andrew Allen of the Jamaica Broilers Group, otherwise known as Best Dressed Chicken. And we have Mr. Martin Shifkovitz, and I hope you forgive me, Martin, if I mispronounce your name. I'm trying to remember. Of Ostrojam Limited, and Ostrojam is an agricultural operation in the west of the island. And as I said, I will introduce everybody properly later. We're also hoping to be joined by Dr. Derek Deslanders, who is the president of the College of Agriculture, Science and Education. So welcome again, everyone. Really great to have you here listening to us on social media and streaming live on StreamYard. So how has tourism impacted other sectors of the economy in Jamaica? I'm going to give a brief introduction, then I'll introduce the panel and I'll kind of fire some questions at them. So we all know how important tourism is to the economy of Jamaica. It's absolutely critical. It's our fastest growing industry. It's our major source of foreign exchange. Statista, which is a statistical outfit, in 2018 basically said that travel and tourism accounted directly and indirectly for nearly 34% of Jamaica's GDP. So that's literally 1/3. That's a whopping great amount. In direct terms that year, it accounted for 10.56% of GDP. So again, the importance of tourism cannot be denied. It can be underlined by these figures. There was a study by Tourism Economics in 2015, which said that tourism's contribution to GDP was 19.5%. So you see it went from 19.5 to 34. So that's a big jump. But how important is tourism to other sectors of the Jamaican economy? Well, there was a study in 2015 by Tourism Economics, which basically found that tourism accounts for 15% of all construction in Jamaica, 10% of the finance and banking sector, 20% of manufacturing, and 21% of utilities and agriculture. So that is the huge impact that tourism has on other sectors of the economy. And as an export market, tourism is about 50% of our export market in Jamaica. In other words, if tourism was outside of Jamaica, it would be 50% of the export market. But we are still importing a lot of the inputs for tourism. In fact, the demand study of 2019 showed that the annual leakage due to imports was 65 billion Jamaican dollars in manufacturing and between 1.6 and 5 billion in the agricultural sector. So what we want to talk about this afternoon is how much more can we integrate with tourism? In other words, how can we supply more to the tourism sector? So we want to explore how we can improve the supply side, because when you interrogate or when you survey the tourism sector and ask, why aren't you buying more local? We notice that a lot of them, in fact, some 28% of those surveyed said that low quality is one of the primary reasons that they don't get more from Jamaica. We have another 28% saying inconsistency in supplies, limited information on products and services that are available in Jamaica was 28.6%. Inadequate supplies was 23.8%, and high prices was cited by 19% of people. So these are considered to be the real reasons why why the hotel sector is not importing more or buying more locally. So we're very pleased to welcome now Dr. Deslanders. Thank you for coming on board, and we're really glad to see you here. So I'm going to introduce the panel now, who is going to start off by giving us their impressions of how much they're involved in the tourism market, and how COVID has affected that ability to supply the tourism market. So to introduce our panel, we have Dr. Derek Deslanders, who is a graduate of 3 universities, UWI, the Northwestern University's Kellogg's Graduate School of Management, and Florida State University's Business School. I'm not going to go into a long introduction because we'd be here for a long time. But he is an accomplished lecturer and has taught international business, marketing, consumer behavior, and market research. He is the current president of the College of Agriculture, Science, and Education. Then we have Aswad Morgan, who is a director of the Morgan's Group, which is a family-owned group of manufacturing companies. They do bedding, polyurethane foam, polyethylene foam, and distribution of a number of products. He is also chairman of the Jamaica Expo, which all of you will be familiar with, and chairman of a number of other things, which I'm not going to say just now, Aswad, if you don't mind. We have Andrew Allen, third member of the panel. He's a Monroe old boy and an associate member of the American Culinary Federation and the Culinary Federation of Jamaica. He joined Jamaica Broilers in 1997 as a sales representative and is now the sales relationship manager for the Northern Region parishes from Portland to Westmoreland, which is most of Jamaica, basically. And then last but certainly not least, we have Martin Shifkovich, who is the director of Ostrojam Limited, 2-time national Jamaican champion farmer, please note, 2017 and 2018, so 2 years running. Martin is a graduate from the Hotel and Tourism Management College in Austria. He has served in the Austrian Army. He's a trained chef, so he has many strings to his bow. And he established the Austrian Jamaican Company in 2008 to do farming of about 100 acres of watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew melon, pumpkin, cucumber, and basil. So this is a really interesting panel representing both agribusiness and manufacturing. So I'm going to ask you, starting with you, Derek, and going through in order. How are your businesses supplying the tourism industry? How are you interacting with it? And how do you see the challenges of the COVID period impacting on Jamaica's supply into this business? Derek?
All right, thank you, Dan. Well, I think a little background would be useful. I've been involved in looking at the data, the tourism data relationship for about 13 years. And so I've done a lot of studies over the years. And manage the two of the Ministry of Tourism. But generally speaking, the number of 21% is relatively accurate. We did a study with ICA in 2009, and we showed roughly 15 to 20% of agriculture was driven by tourism. And that is very clear. I mean, a significant level of demand in tourism is food related. And so the impact of COVID would have had significant effects on the farmers. Now, while the government was able to mitigate that to some degree by encouraging farmers to do farmers markets and pre-package the food. In fact, what they're going to do is provide a subsidy to the farmers to allow the food to come into the hands of the consumer at a relatively cheap price. That mitigated somewhat. But the reality is that a lot of farmers have lost a lot of money. And a lot of farmers have had their livelihood severely impacted because you just have to visit South St. Elizabeth to understand, for example, the greenhouse sector, the impact, because the majority of the greenhouse production feeds into tourism. The South St. Elizabeth belt, where Martin is also part of that belt, a lot of their activities are geared towards tourism, whether it is salads or peppers or whatever. And they would have suffered quite a bit. Now, it's useful to kind of put a sense of the numbers The estimate of Jamaican GDP is about 13 billion US. Agriculture is about 7% of that figure. And so when you work out the numbers, you're talking about, if one is 20% of 7%, you're talking about a lot of money. So essentially, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that have basically left, that have basically fallen away from the farmers, who have not been able to recover that. And many of those farmers now, you're not seeing them because they're not protesting or demonstrating, but they are struggling because they have lost a major market. And the local market and the supermarkets and shops and local markets have not been able to pick up that gap. I will not be able to pick up that gap. We also do not export a lot. So a lot of the products that the tourism industry buys are not products that we can export competitively. And I think this point needs to be underscored as we discuss the matter further. Jamaican farmers are by and large uncompetitive. And so there are many areas of imports that flows into the sector that Jamaican farmers could take advantage of if they had a little more efficiency, if their efficiency levels are better, and if their ability to produce and compete with imports were better. So we put that out there. And while the government has done a fair deal in terms of shifting. So for example, in 2009, the bulk of the bell peppers that we now see in the market would have been imported. So over the last couple of years, the government has shifted the production of bell peppers to local farmers. They would have shifted Irish potatoes to local farmers. In 2009, we imported 22 million pounds of Irish potatoes. Now we import about 4 or 5 million. So where's our production going? That's gone to the local farmers. So there has been some clear shifts in the last decade or so. But the tourism industry has expanded at a rate that is far beyond the rate of growth of the farming sector. And there are other factors that are also at play. The tourism industry has gotten bigger. So efficiency is critical. The farmers have remained relatively small. So you have these behemoth, very large establishments emerging, and the small ones have not really grown. So that while the hotels have themselves become more efficient in their operations, the farmers have not grown. And that fact needs to be pointed out quite seriously. So it's a major challenge to move the farmers to a level where they can become more competitive. But there are a lot of areas that the farmers can tap into. We talk about strawberries as one example. Yes, there's an improvement in our farmers growing more strawberries, but it's only about 10% of the total demand, right? So there are certain products that are out there, high value products, where our farmers, if they are trained and able to become more efficient, can compete. But the central question is the impact. The impact has been substantial. Now, can we measure it? Without more time, I probably could give some data, but I think it's fair to say that the impact has been severe. I can tell you, for example, that we have, even in the pandemic period, we have tried to connect farmers and hotels, and it has simply not worked, because as you move from lockdown to lockdown, or issues relating to farmers, cannot go to the fields, or workers cannot go to the fields because of the lockdown challenges and the transportation challenges. With the hotels, the inconsistency let me not say inconsistency, let me say that the rise and fall of COVID cases has also affected the ability of the hotels to remain open for any consistent period. Now, if the hotels cannot open consistently, it also affects the farmer's ability to produce. Yeah. Because the farmer may put something in the ground, and tomorrow morning the hotel sector is locked down again because of the COVID situation. So, yeah. So the farmer has a challenge moving that produce out of his farm into the sector. And the local population, in terms of bell peppers, in terms of salads, Jamaicans are not natural salad eaters. The local domestic Jamaican household eats the processed type tomato, ground produce. Cubers, they eat tomatoes, which is the plummy tomato, mostly for cooking, right? But the salads, no. Yeah. Once hotel industry falls out, you can't forget about that. You can't forget about bell peppers. Jamaicans don't eat other bell peppers, natural eating bell peppers. So all of that is flows into the sector. And there are many other products that I can talk about that. So the impact has been severe. We need to measure it, we need to understand it, but I can tell you quite clearly that and Dan made a point earlier I just want to pick up on. Tourism for the last 20 years has been the fastest growing sector in the economy in terms of FDI, foreign direct investment. In 2006, myself and Dr. and Professor Williams wrote a paper that looked at the reason why more local Jamaican produce or more local Jamaican input was not felt in the tourism sector. And the major problem that we identified was the lack of absorptive capacity of the Jamaican marketplace to absorb the tourism investment. In other words, we have all this investment coming in construction, in agriculture, but we don't have the capacity as a country to absorb and supply all of that, right? Because you need more trained people, more trained farmers. You need bigger farms.
Yeah.
You need 10 and 15 and 20 acre greenhouses, not 3,000 square foot greenhouses. So these are major factors that are going to hold us back, and that will make and that, in fact, I can say this to you: if we get over those hurdles, the deepening relationship between the two sectors will be far greater than what we see now.
Great. Thank you. That has been a really great context setting, and I think your take on the mismatch between the supply side and the demand side, I think that is really critical going forward.
Absolutely.
So, before I come back to you, Derek, to ask you for some solutions, I want to hear from some people who are really successfully supplying into the business. So if we can switch for a moment to manufacturing side, because as what I know is supplying something like 70% of the tourism demand in bedding. And I think you're also exporting as well as what. So maybe you want to tell us, how have you been able to deal with some of the demand from the tourism industry? How did you get into it, and how have you been able to sustain that position?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having us. Fellow presenters, good afternoon. Our success has been a good one. It hasn't come easy. It's been a lot of hard work and focus and determination. And how it all got started, Dan, was having the business was firstly incorporated. Therapeutic Caribbean, which is the bedding side of our business, was we started that in 1984. It's among the top 5 largest bedding manufacturers in the world. So we have a licensing agreement to use the name and a lot of the technology and so on, and the special ingredients are going to the magical beds that we make. In having done about 10 years of the business, we hadn't made a major move in the hospitality sector up to that time. And I couldn't say at the time that we had a big fish, so to speak, under our belt that we could confidently go out and tackle the market, because every door you went knocking on, they would ask you the question, so who have you supplied?
Yeah.
So in 1999, to be exact, Rio Hotel had made a decision to invest in Jamaica by setting up a 396-room hotel in Negril. And it was a linkages event that was set up at the Wyndham Hotel with the big help of Jampro. We were asked, as the local manufacturers were asked, to come display their product at the hotel, and of course the real buying team were invited to come and look at the product. It turned out to be an excellent move. They got an opportunity to see, touch, feel, and invited ourselves and a few other manufacturers to put in a bid, come and meet with them in the grill. So after a couple of trips back and forth to the grill, we finally got that big purchase order, which is what we were quite up to this day. I haven't even gotten a chance to gloat about it, because immediately we got to put in the work in, and 6 weeks later, from the time we received the purchase order to the final delivery, we completed our order on time, obviously at the pricing that they requested, and at the product quality that was required, and that for us was quite an exciting adventure, and one that I should state to you that it's a family-owned business, as I tell you, and I remember my father at the time saying to me, "Say, Aswad, don't worry about it." Now, I said to him, "Don't worry about it. We're not going to make any money on this one. But I promise you that we'll use this opportunity to try and make the inroads that we'd like to make in the industry." Because the margins were very low, the volume was high, and they bargained really hard because they had these supply chain relationships and the competition from outside of Jamaica that we had to really come good, And we did it, and we were very happy. Today, we, as the years went along, we did a number of the hotels, the Rios, the Bahia Principes, the Palmyras. We did a lovely stint with the Hilton Rose Hall and all 4 other jewel properties. At one stage, the Hilton Quality Assurance team came in to Jamaica, did a thorough inspection of our plant from head to toe. We had to present a 40-page document about, how many times I cut my hair, and, when was the last time I brushed my teeth, and submitted to them, and they approved us as the preferred supplier to the entire jewel group for a 2-year stint. And we were, of course, we were working on refurbishing 4 hotels simultaneously. And we did, again, everything on time, within time. And all these hotels, you mentioned earlier that we've done somewhere between 60 to 65% of the hotel rooms that have been built in Jamaica over the last 20 plus years. And not one of these supply contracts did we ever fail. I think from the get-go, we recognize that, you are as good as your last job. If I failed, I was always going to be on my back foot to go for the next one, because they all talk, they all network here. They know who is who, and thank God I speak a little Spanish too. And I've been in forums where they're asking, "So who do you get your bedding from?" And it's always a good thing. I always let the other customer do the talking for us, and we were quite happy and excited about and proud of what we were able to do. But very importantly, throughout the years, I think a big part of the success came from, one, the fact that we recognized that networking was a very, very, very critical component in making big success within the sector, or for any sector for that matter. We never, from 1999 till today, we've never missed a speedworking networking event put on by the tourism
Linkages Council.
And Linkages Council. We've never missed one. We've done all the interactions at Expo Jamaica, at JPEX, etc. Our production line, we continue to reinvest in the production line and continue to upgrade, because as the hotels started to ramp up the business, we needed to increase our efficiency and output. And obviously, each one now decided that more hotels recognize that the importance of having a good bed. It wasn't about price anymore. It was more about product quality and how comfy. And I had one hotel come to me and say, "Look, I want the best, the most luxurious product that you would have ever produced ever." And he says it's on. We have a product here that we are selling, unlimited luxury, and we were able to step it up and deliver that product that he wants. And to this very day, it's all over the internet, reviews from guests, A number of our hotel clients, we have hotel clients calling us after staying at hotels now, asking us to ship beds to them and so on. So it's worked out quite well. We presented a very high level of professionalism in our execution, and we remained reliable right through, which was very important, because again, these hotels all have their own supply chain relationships. They're coming from first world countries, and their expectations are very high. And of course, on our team, we had a big team effort on all levels, from the groundsman to the truckers to the production team, purchasing. Everybody played a very key role in the successes that we enjoyed. And of course, we always try to under promise and over deliver. And just to kind of close, we learned, I think we would have gained a lot of positive spin-offs from that interaction with the trade, with the sector, the hotel sector. And it certainly forced us to improve or increase the quality control standards that we had in place. As I said, we pulled together as a team and recognized from very early too that we had to act as ambassadors for other local manufacturers. If we failed, it was always going to be looked upon that, maybe the other guys will operate this way. If we're unprofessional, then they probably, believe that everybody else operates in that fashion. Mm-hmm. COVID has been a challenge. Thank the Lord, it's not the only revenue stream that we have to the tourism sector, because our primary business is supplying furniture retailers, hospitals, institutions, and so on. COVID has been a big hit for us, negative hit. Our product is seen as a capital expense, and we're only hoping and praying that things will normalize very soon. We're not a consumable product. We sell a bed, we're not expecting to hear or see them for another 7 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. Some go way beyond. So we're hoping that more hotels will come in and try to stem it up. But I will leave it at that and not cover all of this.
Thanks, Azor. That really, I think you've echoed some of the themes that Derek touched on, which I think are critical for the whole supply side, which is really about standards, quality, reliability, and timeliness, yeah. And scale, which are all, I think, critical questions. And I'm sure Andrew is going to build on some of those themes, because Andrew is really representing Jamaica Broilers, which I know has taken a huge hit, like most of the chicken suppliers, from the decline in the tourism industry over 2020. So Andrew, maybe you can give us a sense of how important the tourism business has been to your company and your sector, and how you're going to come out of the COVID period.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, the coronavirus or the pandemic that we're kind of experiencing has had a huge impact on business. To put it in some perspective, most our hotels had to close down for at least 4 or 5 months in the pandemic years. During 2020. For that, for the company overall, 20%, at least 20% of our business, poultry and other businesses, was dependent on tourist inputs, whether it's directly through the hotels or through the associated companies like the attractions, the tour companies, and the attraction businesses where ships would come in, supply guests who go to those theme parks for the different experiences. Then came the pandemic in 2020. We saw for 4 months, maybe from the end of March all the way back to July, where there was just no business coming out of the tourism sector. For us, that meant immediately we lost maybe 80%, 89% of our direct tourism business during that time. For my region, which is heavily dependent on tourism, it represented maybe just over 1/3 of my overall business on the North Coast. So the impact for the company may have been about 20% overall. For me, it was much more than that. Okay, so I would say about August of 2020, there was some recovery. Market, the occupancy numbers were not very significant, but guests started coming in back from July into August, and we overall industry might have picked back about 20-30% of the business, but of the stopover and visitor arrivals coming back into the business, but nothing significant until maybe towards the end of 2020. I was listening to Oswald and his testimony in dealing with the tourism industry. And one thing which is impactful coming out of his experience, or the Morgan experience, that we can do it. Jamaica can do it. We can provide quality that these businesses, that the tourism industry requires. And I say this because we have had through our own experiences in meeting the quality expectations of our tourism partners. They demand a particular type of size chicken. They want it to be giblet free, meaning that it doesn't have the giblets inside of it. They want deboned breasts, they want wings, and that kind of thing. So let me explain to you how the chicken business works. It requires a lot of planning. 3 months out, if you're going to have a surge in the tourism numbers in December or January, we have to plan from now, 3 months out. Meaning that we have to place chicks, we have to source the chicks, because Jamaica only produces maybe about 40% of chicks required for, eggs required for poultry chicks. So the rest has to be sourced from overseas, which is not as simple as it sounds. Take it, we grow it to the specifications that the hotels require. We have to process it and we have to send it to them. Now, doing all of this, keeping in mind that there are certain parameters that they expect. Consistency, quality and consistency, very related. They want a particular size and they want a particular, and that size must be consistent. Meaning that the operations are dependent on a hotel kitchen is a production facility, especially a large all-inclusive hotel. Chef who is the manager of the kitchen doesn't have time to figure out, oh, am I going to be getting 12 birds in a case? Am I going to be getting 48 quarters out of a case of whole birds? Am I going to be getting 150 pieces of breast meat out of a case of bone breasts? So doesn't have the time to be worrying about that. So we have to do all of that work for them on the supply side. So yes, we work closely with them. We work closely with our hotel food and beverage partners, especially with chefs. We support them. We go and we sit down, we listen, we liaise. What do you need? are you changing anything in menus? How can we do, is there any new requirements that we may have? And I wanted to just point out also that we don't only just do poultry, also further processed items. So we're talking frankfurters, burgers, chicken nuggets, all of which are locally produced right here at our facility. So it's a very dynamic business, but it is one that has been growing over the past exponentially over the past 10 years, I would say. And we have done, well, the poultry industry in Jamaica, I think, has done, and I'm not just singling out the company, but the poultry industry in Jamaica has done, I think, a very commendable job in meeting the requirements of the tourism sector. And the growth that we have seen over the past 10 years or so in that sector. Now, logistics and supplies. Always very tricky. Our tourism partners sometimes, they themselves have problems making the correct predictions because this can be seasonal too. Our major trading partners, Europe and North America, from time to time do have issues which affect their planet. Something as simple or intricate as US presidential election affects president in Jamaica. Generally, Americans don't like travel when it's election season in the US. They probably will start traveling right after the inauguration. And I mean, I've seen that in many years that I've been with Jamaica. In the UK, UK visitors are also very particular. They tend to come for 2 weeks at a time. But little issues, political issues, UK will affect their coming. So all of this on the planning and logistical side for the hotel industry, when they give us their effective projections, which we always do our best to try and meet for them. So far, I must say that, and I will put a feather in our cap, that I think we are doing an excellent job with them. And the complaints, we listen keenly to complaints too. And we have had, I would say, very few complaints from our tourism partners as it relates to the supply side of things. They come in, they're allowed to audit operation. We meet all the overseas standards that are expected with HACCP, whether it's ISOs, you name it, we have all the certifications. They will come in, they will audit, they will check the operations, and once they do that, they're completely satisfied. The pandemic never affected the ability to do physical auditing, but we found a way to do virtual audits, where our partners, they can, using the technology and virtual methods, they can do a virtual audit of our facility, which is very important to them. It's very important, especially for the larger groups, hotel groups, when they come in, to know exactly where and how their food, their produce is being manufactured and processed. 2021, we saw a measurable increase in the tourism business, I would say from end of April, May, June, July, up to end of August, which September is traditionally a low peak season time. So we did experience a appreciable level of improvement over 2020. I would say that we got back about 80% of the pre-COVID business that we had with many of these hotel partners. Aside, well, the tourism, the ship side of it is still struggling to emerge. Attractions that depend on the cruise ship business are still struggling. The local businesses have them appreciably somewhat, but until the cruise levels get back to where they were, those businesses will continue to feel the pinch of the current pandemic conditions. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that the cruise ship business will. It just started at slow scale. I mean, Poultry last week had 2 ships, and a few businesses in and around the town, benefited from it, but still not back where we needed to. So going forward, we're still very close to our partners. I mean, on a weekly basis, we touch base with them. What are your bookings looking like? What are your occupancy levels looking like? What are your forward projections? And all this is geared towards us making sure that we can properly plan to meet their demand, the expectations. Because we have no doubt that it's going to come back. Just a matter of when, but we have no doubt. So businesses like ours, and I know many businesses to have to be real creative, but also you also need to take the time to look at your operations and see, how creative you can be and where you can improve on your operations. And we did a lot of that as well. So we're ready for it whenever it comes.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Andrew. That was really quite interesting about how the industry has coped with the COVID challenges. What percentage would you say of current poultry demand in the tourism industry is supplied locally? Do you have a sense of that?
I would say overall production, maybe 20% goes to tourism.
So there's still a lot of room for growth, is what you're saying.
There is still a lot of room for growth. Yes, there's still a lot of room for growth. The hotel, our hotel partners tend to only want to deal with certified companies. So a big part of poultry production in Jamaica, surprisingly, is also the small farmers, effectively as a body. Now the small farmers are going to really have to step up their game to be able to get into the larger hotel operations. But yes, there's room for growth in the industry.
Great, great. Thanks so much for that. Very interesting. So Martin, does that certification challenge also impact the supply of fresh produce? Because I know that your farm is doing a lot of fresh produce, and I think you are supplying a number of hotels. So maybe you could give us an overview of the picture from the fresh produce side of what you're doing, how your supply has been into the hotel sector, and how you're going to emerge from this challenging period we are still going through.
Okay, thank you again for having me.
Oh, I think you're freezing. Oh dear. Mr. Technician, is there anything we can do? I think Martin is frozen, or is it just for me? I think I have to, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go back. Martin is frozen. So while that's sorting itself out, Derek, let me come back to you for a minute. You had said, one of the most interesting things I think you said was the question of mismatch, the rapid expansion of tourism and the hotel sector, which really is now dominated by large all-inclusive properties. So what can we do on the private sector side and on the government side to increase the scale of production that we're talking about, to be able to respond to the demand from these large operations, these industrial style hotels, if you
right. Can I share a little story there, Dan? In 2008,
sure, Martin, sorry, just let me just say, Martin
is back.
seem to be back now. So in 1 minute, we're gonna come to you. Just let Derek answer this question.
Yeah. If I share the story to you, in 2008, I was working in super clubs at the time. And we aligned some farmers in St. James, a couple of co-ops to supply super clubs with a range of farm products. And then what it was then was that we had to deal with 7 or 8 or 9 different hotels. So the farmer would have to go to each of the hotels because each hotels were then independent. Now, fast forward to 2021, and you look at the Sandals, you no longer deal with every Sandals, every different Sandals hotel, you deal with Sandals.
One, yeah.
Which is a single unit. So you're moving from a hotel of 300 rooms to a conglomerate of 3,000 rooms. So the entire approach to meeting those demands and needs changes completely. Now, I mean, CBJB can take on that. And in fact, the chicken industry, the poultry industry, by the way, we still claim to agriculture, Mr. Allen, by the way. We know it's a manufacturer, we still claim here. But just for the record though, that the poultry industry demonstrates precisely how the entire industry has to shift. The model of chicken as proposed is an old sugar model, because that's how sugar was established.
The mother farms.
Exactly, that's the model that operates. So in a sense, how do we move the dial? First, the dial, we have to invest we have to get large investors in the sector. We have to bring into the sector large investors who can put in the kind of infrastructure needed to drive the development of the sector and to bring the standards and the consistency that you need. So the mother farm it would be an outflow from that, but you need that core investment to come in and say, okay, fine. Like the discussion we had last week, a 50-acre greenhouse. People fear it, but the reality is that if we are going to be serious about meeting the needs of the hotel industry, that is the kind of infrastructure, the kind of investment we need to attract. And I mean, and Jambo must be commended for the work you have done with that investor. But there are other investors, for example, in Montpelier, looking to put up 200-300 acres of greenhouses. So I'm saying this is where we have to go. No, our role as in the sector, as the thought leaders and whatever, is to work with these investors now to try to bring the small farmers up so that they're not left behind.
Yeah.
Right? Because most small farmers simply don't have the resources to be able to go bigger. They don't have the support. They can't get the loans. So you need to find a way to trigger that development process. And I think the core piece of it that is where I am sitting now is to move to larger farms, to bigger farms. So to figure out a way to grow this. So like a Martin, so for example, in a couple of years time, Martin has to get to a 10, 15, 20 acre of greenhouses because that's what's going to be required to be able to compete. Right? And then Martin, we start to think now in terms of exporting, because that's where the thing comes in, because you have Sandals in Antigua, Sandals in Barbados. How do I get into
Sandals in Seven Islands?
That's exactly the point. So in growing and building on the Jamaican agriculture sector, right? We get caught up sometimes down in the small farmer. We say, boy, we don't want to kill a small, but the reality is that small farmers are critical, but they can't move the dial.
No, Derek, you're absolutely right. And Jampro is fully on board with you. I think you don't probably know of all the projects that we're working on. You know of 2 greenhouse ones, but we have 2 others in addition to that, because we are fully convinced that scale is the name of the game. And that's why I'm very interested to turn over to Martin now. Thanks. I'm glad you're back, Martin. So give us your perspective on modern agricultural practices and production for the hotel sector and how we can really start to overcome that size issue that Derek was talking about.
Hello, afternoon again. I just have to say that I came to Jamaica many years back, and when I had the pleasure to meet Mr. Heinz Simonich, and when I came to Jamaica, my dream was to become a general manager of a 5-star hotel, because I graduated from the Hotel and Tourism Management School. So if I'm looking back now where my journey has taken me to become 2-time national champion farmer, the purveyor of the year for the hotel sector, maybe I would have said to some of my friends in Austria that maybe we had too much red stripe, right? But I do remember that when we just started the business is Austrojam. I remember Oswald Morgan was at those meetings, and we always went to those ones, and we would talk to one another and say, you already spoke to this hotel? And I say, you have somebody who we can talk to. So we would exchange, because I experienced the same way as Mr. Morgan was explaining to us earlier, we were a total nobody, you know. So, you know, when you call the hotel and I said, oh, I have watermelon, cantaloupe, and honeydew, I will never forget where a purchasing manager said to me, and I felt really low after that. I said, listen, I have 8-9 people calling me every day for watermelon. You're planting the wrong thing. Start to plant something else and call me back. Yeah. You know, the impressive thing though is, which I can only justify to anybody, if you stay consistent, if you stay produce quality and become reliable. You know, that same purchasing manager called me 3 years later and said he didn't have a supplier for the watermelon, and at that time was my time to shine. You know, so the only challenge at that time is that you really never give up. Right. And, you know, when I hear Mr. Deslanders, you know, he's the head of the agricultural school. Yes, we have to look into the future, but at the same time now, you know, there are the challenges which is facing us now. At the moment, we're talking about a drastic increase of the production costs, right? And we're talking about that there are a lot of big farms coming, a lot of greenhouses and so forth. I yet to see how we have to find a way, because to me, right, on the one side, we have our success in the business, right? But I'm sure that everybody agrees with me too, that we do have a responsibility to take care of our community. In other words, I cannot have my farm, my 100 acre or if it's more, and my storeroom and my operation in a community, and we are shining and the entire community is suffering. So we have to find a way. I mean, yes, there are certain models with mother farms and so forth. I mean, we plant on our farm, for example, watermelon, cantaloupe, the honeydew, the cucumber, and pumpkin. But over the years, we have established other farmers who became our main pineapple farmers. We have 3 pineapple farmers who produce for us pineapple all through the year. We have Irish potatoes, we have onions who we produce during the season. We have a papaya farmer produce for us. So I'm really saying it's about community responsibility. And yes, we always say that the small farmer has to gear up, the small farmer is at fault, but I'm saying let us assist the small farmer in order to find a way how we can also put food on their table, right? And it maybe sound very simple to all of us because we just blessed to have a good job or we have a successful business, but at the same time now the struggle out there is real. Right? So if we just saying we have to involve those people and say we're having the big investors, I always say, you know, it's good to have the money, right? And everybody wants to be a manager, but nobody wants to put to make their hand dirty. And I can only say, when I won the first time the champion farmer, you know, I will never forget. I went and at the stage, you know, there's a process where a team come and judge your farm, your operation, and have a certain certification process. And, you know, when we won the trophy, a lot of people were saying, this man don't look like a farmer. What happened to him? You know, he doesn't look like a farmer. He don't look like he's working, right? And, you know, when we have this kind of belief that, you know, you're not working, you know, we wake up every day early in the morning, you know, we go to the farm, but there's way more to be done than being on the farm, yes, but at the same time, it's the management, right? I do appreciate from Champro that it's all about the project and to bring in the investors, right? But, you know, talking about to export our produce, until we are able to really fulfill the 100% satisfy our local demand, I think then we have to start to talk about export, right? So I know that a lot of people may don't know, but you know, we have 2 seasons in farming, right? You have a winter season and a summer season. That is by temperature, but at the same time, same like how you can imagine you have the mango season, we have a season where we can plant Irish potato, we have a season where we plant onions, right? So what we do need to understand, at the time where we don't have the opportunity to plant those crops, we either can store to a certain extent of time, but then we just have to decide that we have to import. So we need to always find the right balance between the supply and the demand, and also the increase of prices. I'm just recapping. Recently, we had a drastic increase of local Irish potato prices. The demand was there, supply was not there, and there were like a little bit of a misbalance with releasing the importation. So if that is not done in the right time manner, we have also back to the community where the small man is suffering to pay $300 for a pound of Irish potato, you know. So those, we have to find the right balance in all and everything. And you know, we have here Best Dressed Chicken. I wish we would have a monopoly like Best Dressed Chicken and CP Chicken, where just two big companies running the chicken business. And I'm sure Mr. Morgan would be happy if he would be the only one who provides bed to this island, right? But unfortunately, certain sectors don't have the possibility to have a monopoly, right? So therefore, we have to be better than the others. For example, we have during Corona, you know, as it has affected us, we have actually started to we did it the other way. We actually started to invest in some more storage facilities. So we are yet to have a grand opening in October, November, where I'm sure Jumper will hear about it, right? But we increasing our storage capacity. We added 2 more refrigerated warehouses. But, you know, to plant the right amount at the right time until we have the consistent tourists coming on our island, because right now we have like a wave going up, going down, going up, going down, right? You may can store a chicken and you may can store some beds which are already produced, but when it comes to fruits and vegetables, we cannot freeze our melons, we cannot freeze our Irish potatoes, so we have an expiration time, right? So therefore we can increase our storage, but yet I'm almost sure that it will take at least another year or 2 until we will be back at the pre-COVID situation when it comes to the demand of the produce, because yet everybody is saying, okay, the demand is back or demand is coming in slightly, but what I'm talking is about consistent demand. You know, when you operate a fruits and vegetable farm, then you have maybe for weekends a higher demand than during the week. Right? Our business, as Mr. Deslanders say, the fruits and vegetable production in Jamaica is 80%, and a lot of people may not know that is 80% the tourist sector. The other 20% is just local. We have absolutely no problem to supply our local, our local demand. You know, and I was a little bit disturbed after a while last year during COVID. You know, it was a help out time where we had those box deals advertised by certain agencies, but we all knew that, you know, you cannot produce no fruits and vegetables to be sold for $1,000 box on a consistent basis. It helped at that time the community before it would rotten, but at the same time we have our expenses, the farmer expenses, so it has to have a certain price point. But we in Jamaica, we have the confidence and we have the support. I mean, greenhouse is a way to go, storage is a way to go, right? But we have to remind everybody that it's not only about the price, right? It is also about the area where it come from. So I'm always saying, know your produce. You have people like Mr. Allen talking about certification. We still have the challenge where only a few people are asking really where the produce is coming from, right? We have our breeder license issue is an ongoing problem in Jamaica, and I yet to see how some of those greenhouse owners will secure their greenhouses, because it's gonna cost them a lot of security, because when goods are scarce, there is demand for it, right? Now my question is, I'm also on a board for the breeder license and prevention unit, and we're always talking about policing the areas where the goods are stolen, but I'm always turning it around amount, and I'm saying, let us check the people who are buying the produce. Because I always saying, if you buy a produce and you don't know Martin, you don't know the other farmer or whoever where the goods are coming from, then you are also a thief. So if you're just running down the cheapest price and ask for how much a pound, we have a tremendous opportunity. I'm just saying now, putting my hat on from as a former champion farmer when I toured the country, we have a tremendous potential with coconut. We have a tremendous potential of breadfruit, but the majority of coconut farmers say they cannot bother with their coconut farm because before they're ready to drink their own coconut water, somebody going to take it away. You know, so until we fix all those challenges, we can continue to talk about investment, which is great. But I am always saying, support first those people who are already in the business or those farmers who are willing to work, and then we look outside. I mean, I was learning the hard way, coming to Jamaica, starting my business, and getting accepted through my success. But you know, automatically when you have success, a lot, Mr. Deslanders maybe can agree, it doesn't matter the color you are or where you come from, but in farming, especially in farming, we always put down what other people are doing instead of raising them up and uplift them and assist them, right? So we have such a great opportunity with so many, I know a lot of young people from Case, and all of them want to go into farming, but we're not giving them an opportunity, right? And so what is it, what we can do to improvise that, you know? We have to also understand the tourist preferences. You have European tourists, you have American tourists, and you have British tourists. This maybe sound just for a Jamaican to be a foreigner, but for me, for example, to be an Austrian Jamaican, I have different preferences than maybe American, right? So when they come now, we have to present them the quality produce. So the hotel or the supermarket gets, in that case, is not so important, but for the hotels, they have to understand that it's not all about the cheapest price, that you have to have a good quality melon. I went to a recent weekend getaway. I'm not going to say the hotel where I was, but the hotel was not a place where we supply our fruits, and the melons were terrible. And I'm saying we wouldn't even feed the goats those melons, right? So, you know, we have to have a certain standard, because everybody who comes to our beautiful island has to deserve the best quality. They should never be out of an item. So if we don't have it locally, we have to provide it for them, because you can imagine if a tourist comes all the way from Europe or from the United States and would love to eat a watermelon, and then they are not on the plate or on the buffet, then something is missing. He always have his strawberries at home, you know, but he wants exotic fruits. I'm talking about the potential of soursop, of all those exotic fruits, even the tree program, tree planting program. We have so much potential, right? But there we need to understand our customers. And just to come to a closing, I would just say to all our listeners, right? We need to stop to just always talk. I know price is one thing, but we need to talk about partnerships. And partnerships can only work if the two sides benefit. So if only one side is getting the cheapest price, but the other side is me as a supplier or a farmer or is not making any money, then maybe I can only supply for another 2-3 months until my cash flow burn up. But we need to understand that a melon or a fruit or vegetable, it takes a period of time to grow. Same like how a bed takes some time to get all the material together. So therefore, our customers, our hotels need to understand that only through contract farming, that's my real main suggestion, contract farming, what you guys do, for example, with the chickens, Mr. Allen, you have a minimum of 3 or 6 months contract, or even to a year, where the farmer or the group of farmers can provide to the hotel, for example, the storage, the proper logistics, but at the same time where the hotel commits to them and saying, we only buy from you guys, but you guys ensure that we always have it. And this is the aim of the game. We can bring another 100 investors to this country and we can continue to raise to get lower prices, but at the end of the day nobody going to make no money, and at the end of the day we're still going to have the times where we don't have no goods for a certain period of time and where we have overproduction. So we need to be mindful of all of that, and I think sometimes it have nothing to do with politics, because agriculture is everybody's business. I think that a lot of people are afraid to say certain things, what is happening, but at the end of the day, agriculture to me is the most important in this country, because it will put food on the table for everybody. So if there's available, if the small farmers is happy, the people are happy, you know, if we have enough food, we can feed ourselves. I think this is the main thing, but I'm saying it again, right? Jamaica is everybody business, and don't think farming doesn't affect you, because when people will go back to their parties, there's no curry goat at the party, you know? Who is going to provide it? I mean, there are no fruits, smoothies, you know, we have this saying, the green juice, the smoothie, when I see them at certain supermarkets, you know, we provide all those inputs, right? So farming is the sector, but I'm saying anybody who purchase from a farmer, anybody who have partnerships, do not have a 1 week bidding system where whoever is the cheapest bidder to a supermarket can get the bid at that time or a monthly, because there is no fruit and vegetable which can grow within a week, a month, or 2 months. The shortest crop I can tell you right now is cucumber. It takes around 6 to 7 weeks. So at least, but I'm saying people have to understand that's how we can fix, and it can fix the breeder last issue. Can cut it down by 50%, because if we're not racing down who has the cheapest price and the thief doesn't have no business, then it's just a win-win situation. So I'm appealing to Mr. Deslanders, to Ms. Edwards, and all the listeners that you really ask the question where your produce come from and form partnerships for anybody, and never give up whatever is your journey to be, because if we don't have no young farmers, I'm just yet to see who is going to feed our country, who is going to produce the produce, if we don't have no youngsters coming up in our country.
Thank you, Martin. That was very passionate, and I think I heard the message that we have to find a way to manage the value chain in such a way that everybody along the value chain benefits. And I think this is one of the critical questions of how do we manage supply into the tourism sector. So I'd love to hear other people's take on this whole question of managing the supply and value chains, and how do we ensure that there is greater equity along that value chain. And then also I'd like to get your perspective on the way forward. What are the critical things that we need to do to maximize our supply into the tourism sector, because that is the sector that can drive this economy. So Derek, you want to take a stab at that if you've heard that question?
Yes, let me say that Martin, we have had many discussions. I've had many discussions with Martin, and for those of us who understand my role in the sector, I spend a lot of time trying to encourage contracts, because I believe that contracts are the way to go. I run a agriculture school. We are farmers. We supply all kinds of products to the marketplace, goat and pigs, and we buy chicks from Mr. Allen and feed and whatever it is. So we are part of that value chain. So we recognize the challenge, for example, of the time in the trade last issues. I mean, last year we lost two of our biggest, our best bucks to pay the last, and so it's a real challenge. But the question is, how do we find a way to bridge the gaps? How do we align the value chain in a way that everybody benefits? I come back to the point that it is not insurmountable, right? Martin spoke about storage. It's something that we know, we have talked about it. But again, how do you find investors willing to put that resources in there to do it? Are we, for example, can we convince government of Jamaica to put in that kind of infrastructure? Tried in the 70s, it didn't work too well. We need a different model. Yeah. So I understand Martin's position completely, right? But at the end of the day, we have to find a way to make it work. So I think in some respects, Dan, we are aligned. Jampro's views, my view, certainly, the views of most, we are aligned. We know exactly what needs to happen. The challenge is how do we get it done, right? For example, in our discussions, as you are aware, with the big investors, we are saying to them, in your production efforts, recognize that we have 3,000 square foot greenhouse operators and, not 10 acre and 20 acres. So we ourselves, in our deliberation discussion with investors, are saying, listen, you have to look at partnerships with our local farmers, because we recognize, we have 220,000 small farms in Jamaica, and they operate on less than 2 acres of land. 75% operate on less than 2 acres of land. So we understand the reality that they're facing, right? But at the same time, we import billions of dollars. In fact, we import $1 billion US worth of food.
Yeah.
And Jamaica, despite all of what we say, we are food insecure. So we have to find a way to bridge that gap. So you need a large investor, you need a big producer, but you also need to find a way to bridge the gap with the small investors. So what we have to find a way there to do, as Martin is suggesting, is how do we connect with the value chain? How do we build out the value chains so that everybody understands their role in it? Let me make another point. Irish potatoes is an example of what can happen. In 2009, we were importing 22 million pounds. And I want to understand what we're talking about here. The local farmer had no say in the industry. We sat down with the importers and we agreed that the importers would provide contracts to local farmers. Not everybody agreed with the approach, but let me say that 10 years later, 13 years later, the industry is dominated by local farmers. 85% of the supply of tail potatoes are done by local farmers. And they are done through contracts with the farmer importers who have now become farmers themselves. It can be done. It won't be done for every crop, but there are some strategic crop you can target. Potatoes can be stored for a year. Once you have the right storage conditions, onions can be stored for a year. Sweet potatoes can be stored for a year. So once you have the right storage conditions, you can extend the shelf life of many of these products. Lettuce can be stored for a year, not for a year, but for a longer period, once it's stored properly. So again, Martin is right. But how do we get that storage factor in? How do we find investors who are prepared to put up that resource? Because one of the other challenge we have there is energy. And how do you produce energy at a lower rate that allows you to compete with, say, Holland in storing your produce? Because when people don't understand, Holland is the largest exporter of Irish potatoes and onions. They produce one crop annually.
Yeah.
Jamaica benefits because Jamaica is an interesting place because Jamaica has a lot of microclimates. So Martin can be producing onion in St. Elizabeth, but you can also be producing onion in St. Mary at some other point during the year. We have to look at what are the advantages that we have as a country and manipulate our production systems in a way that takes advantage of those microclimates that we have. Right? So as I said, I look forward to continue the dialogue because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, which is a country that's prosperous, where the farmers are not just scrounging around to live, that the farmers are living comfortable lives and are able to supply and meet the needs. Just like Mr. Allen's chicken farmers. And he doesn't tell you, but 35% of the production of chicken meat comes from the small farmers. So it can't be done. Oh, yeah, okay, it can't be done. Sorry, Allen.
So yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, just my cameo is that Jampro actually came up with an agribusiness strategy, which I know you had quite a hand in, Derek. And we consulted with a number of people to come up with that agribusiness strategy. And the point about it is it's climate smart, involves small farmers. So it's a mix of both large and small. And we have to have that mix. And the contract farming and the infrastructure has to definitely be a part of it. I'd be interested, Andrew, in your take on it, given the success of the broiler industry, because I think that's one of the industries that has been highly successful in developing new technology and in staying on the cutting edge, as you said, of production and of that value chain and involving small farmers.
Both Martin and Eric spoke to contract farming. Contract farming, it gives you better management, better control over the type of product that farmers are able to produce. Not as easy as it sounds, but definitely to me, that's the way to go. Derek pointed out that small farmers as a group, collective group, can produce over 30% of the poultry annually that Jamaica grows. Over 30%. Problem is that it needs management, needs organization for it to be able to target, tourism-related industries. Yes, some of them might supply a few attractions and a few jerk restaurants and stuff like that, but so far they haven't really tapped into tourism in a major way. So it definitely needs better organization and contract farming, quite honestly, is where we go.
Great, great. No, I think we're all convinced that that is one of the critical things. So Aswad, in your manufacturing life, in your manufacturing sector, there isn't really such a call for contract outsourcing of production. But how do you see the future for your industry in terms of not just furniture, but manufacturing in general? Because I know you were once head of the JMEA, so JMA at that time. How do you see us ramping up manufacturing to supply more to the tourism industry?
Dan, we have to, I think we have to focus on, zoning in on what it is that the market requires. It's going to take a lot of education of the buyers in the different hotels. A lot of them come out to you and they send you a request for quotation and say, quote me on 50 beds, and that's the only brief you get, and it shows that they're not knowledgeable about, this is not a commodity item. This is not flour or sugar. This is a bed. I can give you a Lada bed, or I can give you a Bentley bed. And again, I can hear the frustration from Martin in terms of, them not understanding and recognizing that you have to, quality comes with price, and them understanding the differences between the two and not being a commodity item. So I think where we stand a really strong chance is through innovation. As I said, through recognizing what it is that the market truly requires, looking into focusing on import substitution. There's a lot of stuff being imported. There's a lot of leakage in my sector. Despite the fact that the room count has increased exponentially and more hotels are coming, the leakage or the hole has become a little bit bigger. And we just have to kind of, again, look in and say, well, what can we substitute for some of the imports that are coming in? And we have to continue to differentiate our product offerings and how we go about doing business, and continue to network and push and shine and show that we have the capacity and the capabilities here in Jamaica to do whatever it is that we have. But it has to be supported for us to really have a fighting chance. It has to be supported by all the stakeholders, including government, all those who need to, there are a couple, I can remember the numbers, Dan. I think it was something like $350 billion that was spent in manufacturing over in 2018 when the tourism demand study was done. And, a large chunk of it was certainly with furniture and bedding and so on, and cosmetics and a few other areas. Recognizing again what we have shined in, I think that we should come out and the government would come out and support the sectors, because it's obvious that we can be competitive. So, for instance, land acquisition. How can you facilitate, expansion of existing plants that are out there? Land prices in some cases have just gone out the roof. Good for those who are selling the land, but it's terrible for us who are out there looking to expand our operations and create employment. Our issues are very different from that of agriculture and so on. And we just keep focused on trying to, certainly in my own experience, we just keep focused on trying to stay ahead and retool and trying to expand, and educate, and or we use the terminology educate the public out there.
So let me ask you. So let me ask you then, Oswald, how would you like government to support, let's say, the Tourism Linkages Council? What should the Tourism Linkages Council be doing more, or what should JAMPRO be doing more to support what I consider to be a bit of a credibility gap between the incoming new hoteliers, because they don't have enough information. Remember, I went through the reasons why people don't source locally, and information is certainly one of them. And the credibility gap, which is, I think, they think we can't supply quality and consistency. So I think those are two elements that we really have to work on.
Yeah, a lot of these hoteliers, they like to see size and scale, and they like to touch, feel. Factory tours would certainly be a thing that I believe would make a difference. I'm sure if I step into a Jamaica broilers or a sea beach plant and I take a tour of it and stuff, I'd right away it would remove a lot of that misconception that we have about the ability to supply and a certain quality and so on. So I think factory tours would certainly be a big help. Oftentimes our interaction with the hotels is us going to knock on the door. I can tie a mattress on top of the car, but I can't walk into it with the office for them to test and feel.
Yeah.
Certainly more of the consistent, more of the speed networking and those linkages events with a slightly different twist to it. We have a unique issue where we have a very big product that we can't move with, but a lot of the food suppliers or food manufacturers and so on, it works well for them. I can't think of anything else at this point.
All right. No, that's good. That's a good start. So Martin, I think that kind of segues nicely into your product line, which is easier to get in front of people. How do you see our ability to, as I said, one is to get more information in front of incoming hoteliers, and two is to bridge that credibility gap where they just don't really believe that we can supply. And the third thing is that they come with their supply chains already set up. So how do we bridge that gap? How do you?
Ms. Edwards, I just have to tell you, I'm also a member of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, and I'm a counselor. So I'm fighting my battles with some of the hoteliers, and I'm also part of the Linkages Council there too. And we always say to those hoteliers who say that the market, that the suppliers are not reliable and they're not consistent and the quality is not right, we're just telling them that they choose the wrong supplier. Because they're always complaining about the same thing, and it's always the same type of hoteliers, it's always the same type of people. Those ones who have a consistent supplier, who have already chosen Mr. Morgan for his beds or so, you will not hear them that there's no consistent supplier for beds. right? Those ones who constantly looking just always to bridge the gap to find a cheaper supplier, those ones most of the times who trying to complain about there's no consistent supply. I just have to say, additionally, I'm not sure, maybe Mr. Deslanders was a little bit over motivated in that case, but I have not seen any lettuce to be able to be stored for a year as yet. I don't want to have a lettuce being able to be stored for a year, so maybe that was a mistake by you, and I don't want to mislead some people because lettuce can't store so long, you know. But when it comes to the fruits and the vegetables,
I corrected it, Martin.
Okay.
I made the correction.
Yeah, but yes, but we just have to find the balance, and we just have to continue to find the gap and bridge the gap. I know, Ms. Edwards, you guys from Champro, you're just getting in the investment, but again, I have to say, imagine we have a company right now coming with a lot of money, and they're going to decide to build a factory to build some beds, right? They're going to employ 1,000 people, but we have 5-6 companies here in Jamaica who employ way more people than that one factory. But that one factory could totally crash the local market. We have situations right now where we have the 2 largest pineapple producers in this country would be easy to crash all the other thousands of pineapple farmers who have generations over generations farm of pineapple. So imagine if one of those companies or those 2 companies decide to totally crash the market in pineapple, what are we going to do with 2,000-3,000 pineapple farmers? Are we going to tell them to produce cheaper? Are we going to tell them to go start work at the call center? I've had a meeting where somebody suggested that farming is doomed in Jamaica, and we have to look to send some of our young entrepreneurs, young farmers, instead of working at the sugarcane farm, we should send them into a call center. Right? We have so many smart, educated people who have some visions about agriculture or overall of our sector in Jamaica, where I question myself sometimes if they really went to university. And this is some views we have to just sit all together on the table and be mindful of the responsibilities that we have and always see the 2 sides of the story. Anybody who eats my watermelon, anybody who eats our fruits, or anybody who eats pasteurized chicken or sleeps on a bed from Mr. Morgan or Mr. Azan or you name it, they know what they have on that quality. And when you guys, Ms. Edwards from Champro, get complain about there's no consistent supply, let them come to us. We will take care of them, you know?
Okay, I hear you. So bring more investors into your factories, into your operations, and let them tour. I hear you. I hear that suggestion loud and clear. So
hopefully fully vaccinated. It was sorry, I just have to say that hopefully fully vaccinated. Absolutely. And I'm proud to say that 99% of our own farm workers are fully vaccinated, and we didn't have to force them because the agricultural sector, we knew what it meant when from one day to the other, the entire production completely halted, and we didn't have no business from one day to the other. We had absolutely only our supermarket, and all of them were out of. We tried to help them as best as possible, and except one person who, I don't know, maybe he will be left behind, but I'm telling you, I'm proud to say that 99% of my farm workers, of our workers, are fully vaccinated, and you will realize that people in the country who have suffered from the effects of Corona, we want to go back and party, we want to have our own beer drinks, night dances, we want to enjoy ourselves. So please, we have to enforce it. Everybody have to take the vaccine.
Yeah, I think that is coming, definitely, and we see already many private sector people demanding that. So I would like to move on in the conversation really to sort of look at, I don't know the audience, if the audience has questions. I only see one question coming from the audience so far, and that is really a question about the transport operators. And I don't know if anybody on the panel really can take on the question of what plans there are for the transport operators, because I don't think that that's really the expertise of anyone on this panel. But I would really like to move on to what tips you have, what recommendations you have for private sector people who are looking at the tourism market and thinking, okay, how can I follow in Martin's footsteps? How can I do what Jamaica Broilers is doing or what Morgan Group is doing? What sort of tips do you have for people who want to get into the tourism business? And also particularly, I think from the point of view of Case, how can young people, more young people, get into farming and make this a real lifestyle and a real career opportunity? So who wants to take that one? Andrew, maybe you want to give some recommendations to people who want to get into the tourism business and how you see the way forward?
I think you got, I think Linkages has a very powerful forum. And if we can incorporate more of the institutions like CAS, sorry, Doc.
That's all right.
Case and all at heart and all those institutions come in to join into these linkages, into the linkages forums and so on. It can be an eye opener for the younger generation that's coming up, that hey, there's some value, there's something to be earned out of the agricultural sector. Quite honestly, I mean, a lot of how teaching them and quite honestly no is it's not really encouraging. I'm not talking about your level, Dr. Derek. I'm talking about from the primary school level to the high school level. You rarely hear of agricultural programs again. But segue back into the whole linkages, we have to find out to incorporate the young minds, the young talent that we have out there into the linkage forum, so they can get appreciation for what is there and what the real opportunities are. And I'm a strong believer that agriculture is one of the local agriculture is one of the ways out for Jamaica in this country. Whether it's to meet local demand and also to export. We believe in export. As a matter of fact, we do export as well. And I can tell you that it is one of the ways that we have ourselves out of the current conditions that we exist in. But linkages, I think can play a very important role in convincing some of those young minds out there that yes, there's value to being a part of the agricultural sector.
Thanks, Andrew. One of the things I have seen recently, which I found really interesting, is what they call freight farms, which is really container farming, and how that becomes an urban way of farming. And I don't know if at Case, Derek, you are looking at some of these innovative ways of farming. There's literally using vertical farming within a container, which can be done in someone's backyard or somebody's community. So it's a way of bringing more communities into farming. Are we looking at different methods like that to try and bring more people into farming and not losing sight of what it is we're here to discuss, which is how do we expand our supply into the tourism market? What are your recommendations, Derek?
Well, Diane, actually, we before COVID hit, we had ordered a container out of China to run some experiments and the tests, because we were looking at container farming not just as a way to produce food more consistently, but also to produce animal feed. So we were looking at it as an experiment to, as a model. Our resources were affected badly. We couldn't push through with that idea. We still have it in the back of our minds to get there. But we have actually expanded a lot into aquaponics, fish and food and vegetables. We have gone into hydroponics, which is just just using water, recirculating water. You're using less water. We're now discussing aeroponics. So the fact is that we are there. One of the things that we're looking at now is establishing an urban gardening, because we see, for example, hydroponics, aquaponics as ideas about production that can be done within an urban setting and can easily fit it in an urban space because it conserves on space, it conserves on water. So that is something we're pushing, we're looking at. We're also looking at rooftop gardening and establishing, and a lot of our houses in the inner cities are concrete based. You could establish a rooftop garden on that house. So we're looking at those examples as well. So we're there. We are discussing mushrooms in containers. So
Yeah.
the point is, Dan, we are not waiting around to play we're not trying to play catch up. We are in fact trying to leapfrog and access some of those technologies at the cutting edge. And we have created linkages with universities. For example, Lincoln University in the UK is one of the foremost leaders in robotics in agriculture, because this is where we have to move to. So I fully agree. In terms of young people, Dan, I can tell you let me put it probably as bluntly as I can. It's show me the money. If they're not seeing the benefits, you're not going to go into it. And our young people are not interested in going in any fork and who, and they're looking for ways that they can produce efficiently without necessarily putting their hand in the soil.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's where farming has gone. So
woman with computer.
Absolutely, and I'm saying that we're seeing a sharp uptick in interest in agriculture, and let me also say that we produce all the teachers in the high schools, and agricultural science is one of the fast growing and most successful subject in Jamaica now, right? We're the top performers in agriculture science because we're putting the teachers out there, and they're driving the model from primary school all the way to the high school. So you're seeing that you're not going to see it immediately now, but you'll see it next couple of years as it begins to emerge. But there's a strategy now that the ministry has from primary school to college that really speaks to the whole aspect of agriculture and integrating that into schools. We teach schools how to set up hydroponic systems. So we are providing that technology out there. We were in Baghole 2 weeks ago teaching farmers about greenhouse and efficiency in their greenhouse operation. So the point is that we're there. We see it, we understand it, we know that's where the world is going. One of the biggest increase, for example, in container farming is actually in Seoul, in South Korea, where they're converting all the old train tunnels now into aquaponics and hydroponic type systems, right? So we are there, Dan, and in fact, we have in discussions with MEC-JC and a number of ministries about how we expand and push, because we think that this is an opportunity now for our young people, especially in the inner cities, that we can use to drive and grab their interest in agriculture. Because I tell you, technology, the biggest pull in agriculture for young people is technology and the ability to generate and make money.
Absolutely, and I think that answers the question that we see in the chat here. Are there planned opportunities for graduates who studied in this area? And I think the opportunities are exactly what you're saying. So it's technology, it's starting your own business, or it is going into one of the existing businesses, because they're always looking, I'm sure, for graduates who are trained in the business and who know how to navigate the world of technology. I'm sure Andrew would agree with that.
Technology, current technology is going to play a very pivotal role, important role in the future of agriculture. I mean, even our own experience in terms of the contract farmers that we have who are using very modern tunnel houses, and I see a couple up at Doc's location as well. But
we're working on it.
Yes, I see the projects. So just to give a little height of what they are. I mean, years ago you hear about coops and large coops and things. No, to maximize production and efficiency, basically you need a controlled environment. So consider it a greenhouse for chickens there. It is the temperature is controlled, the feed is controlled, the water, which is very important for the growth of chicken, is controlled, and the light as well. But one of the most important things is that it has a climate control system of sort. Growing chickens, they're very sensitive to temperature fluctuations. So once you can control the temperature that they grow under, they will literally eat 24/7 and grow at a fast rate without needing to do any form of additions or anything. Just create a comfortable content for them. So that is a way in how the technology is being used to maximize on production.
Okay. And Martin, what's the word from you? Do you find that you are looking for case graduates or young graduates who have come out with agricultural science degrees or qualifications? Where do you see the future for them?
The future, as I understand with Mr. Deslanders, with his school, the case, I have spoken to a lot of his students, but the majority of them are mainly going into science and become expert after they leave his school, his university or school, right? And we have a lot of them who do take over from their father's business and some of their family businesses, right? But it is definitely a generation change. And to me, the most outcry I always get from a lot of young graduates from K school or from young students who come out to start into farming, their risk is too great in order to take the chance to start the business. In other words, I have just recently spoken to a young farmer. He's in Maypen, and he was telling me, listen, I only have one piece of land which my family owns. I would love to have some money, but yet I have to use this land to be, he doesn't have a title for that land, by the way. He has to use the title for his mother's car that he will get a loan in order to start farming. So if those type of risk existing for our young entrepreneurs, right, it is yet to understand why are some of those youngsters saying, listen, the risk is just too great. The interest is 100% there. I do understand totally why somebody wants to choose to be a RADA extension officer or be a scientist in any kind of sector, because the risk is too great. And we need to address, the agricultural insurance, which was recently reintroduced. It doesn't have absolutely no use for the agricultural sector, meaning that insurance is only when rain is falling and you have at the weather station somewhere, it is signed up that you will get a payout. So therefore, that insurance have absolutely no use. So therefore, we don't have a tool which secure a loan. So we have to also put our banking sector back. I've spoken to the banking sector and I continue to talk to them. We need proper tools to get a risk reduction for young people who want to go into farming, right? We just had recently, I can speak for myself, recently we lost 2 watermelon fields because of the heavy rainfall. We didn't get flooded out, but yet the bearing, because of the heavy rainfall, the little melons, which you would see on the plant itself, it was just cut off by the heavy rain. Now, imagine we have consistent garden one after another, so we had a lose and it's a loss. But imagine that would be right now a young farmer who started his first farm, and this would be his first startup. He would have totally lost everything. So at the first get-go, he would already have a failure. Who backs him up? Who helps him? Right? I'm seeing over the years, and I've spoken to the previous Minister of Agriculture, the previous one and the previous one, so I have spoken to a lot of them. We need to stop to have this type of donations, I call it, when there's a natural disaster that they just, we're allocating in this area 30 million Jamaican dollar there, so we're going to spend 50. I have seen recently the most effective donation or fund raising was recently when the new or temporary Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Shaw, came in place, and they said, listen, he's going to donate those funds towards the fertilizer. It is unbelievable how this funds is helping us right now, that finally the fertilizer price at least coming down for the next 2 months, starting on 1st of October, right? We have to stop just hand out all over the place money, while we could put those funds together and maybe have like a safety net
A crop
to
insurance.
support if something is happening.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to get a safety net. We have all those agencies, the World Bank, all those ICA, you name all of them. Why can't we just put all those money what they giving to Jamaica over the years, and we put it together for not only for young farmers, but overall for young entrepreneurs to help them with funding. You know, we have to stop just wasting money what we're getting all over the place, and it never helped where it needed. I'm just saying, if I look back, Mr. Morgan was saying, my father, when I just came to Jamaica, everybody knew I would work in a hotel, right? So when I told them I'm coming out of the hotel because I saw the demand and I saw the consistent supply, the challenges what we faced, I said, I can do it better, right? I saw that my father didn't come for the first 3 years when I started my business to Jamaica because he thought I would fail. You know, he couldn't imagine what I'm doing in Jamaica. So it's not that he didn't love me or anything, but he just knew it is very challenging. Now I had, thank God, this strength, but I can just imagine what for those young entrepreneurs who maybe have no support or anything, what it takes, and we don't have to be surprised why there is no why the people are not moving into farming. We need to put funds together. Mr. Deslanders, you have to advocate for that. And Ms. Edwards, we have to put certain funds aside to assist young entrepreneurs from the manufacturing. How a young entrepreneur can ever start another bedding company? You know, it's impossible.
Yeah.
By the way, I can just say we have to talk the truth too. There will be nearly impossible to nobody who, unless we have another billionaire, he can go into chicken and compete with CP chicken or best dressed chicken. But in order, if I want to make a feeding mill, I need at least $2 million US dollars. I don't think that will be easy for any young entrepreneur to do. So I think we have to leave certain things to those two big companies, because it's really, we have to be truthful to them and say it's very difficult that anybody will ever be able to compete with those two chicken companies, you know.
I hear you. Okay, so I think we're winding down now. So I wanted to just have a last word from each of you on the question of what recommendations would you give to people who want to get into the business of supplying hotels? What would be, your top 3 tips that you would give to them as to what they need to do to become successful suppliers? Aswa, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I would say too, quite like how it all unfolded for us, it required a lot of patience, and time that you would have to invest in building those relationships with the customer base. We've had people that we engaged from day one, and 10 years later, we're just getting the business. And when it comes full on. Just keep knocking on the doors. Networking, critical part of any business, anywhere, whether you're in agriculture or poultry or anything, networking is absolutely key. You have to have the hunger and desire and keep knocking on the doors. You don't get to a place where, you think people are going to come at you. You have to keep going at them. You have to take yourself to the business and don't wait on anybody to come to you. And of course, a big focus on innovation, and of course, and last but not least, I think as Jamaicans we have to kind of move away sometimes from thinking or presenting ourselves to the customers that you're trying to help us. We have to get out and help, push that we're here to try and help them, and you have to present yourself in a strong way and be confident, and as I said, people like size and scale, and they want to do business with people who even appear to be successful.
Yeah
That's my bit.
No, critical, very, very critical tips. I think that confidence, I think definitely, and networking. When I used to run a small business, well, what was then in the UK a small business, although it was a subsidiary of Ray & Nephew, but that question of confidence and approaching people and customer orientation, I think those are really critical tips. Andrew, you want to follow on?
Research, do you research? It's important that you look carefully, you try and understand the business that you want to get into. So if it is that you want to, get into hotel business or attraction business, you have to understand the dynamics and basically what the needs and wants are. I also agree with Azwa that it takes a lot of persistence, it takes a lot of patience as well. But at the same time, you still have to have positive mindsets and attitudes with it. We have had, and I have had any experience where persistence has paid off. But research. I mean, educate yourself, but also research, very important.
Absolutely agree. A lot of businesses fail because people fail to research, fail to plan, but also fail to research, and particularly market research and customer research. They don't do it sufficiently. That's definitely a set of tips that people can build on. Martin, from your point of view, what would be your final recommendations?
Well, to me, is, as you say correctly, planning is number one. And then, of course, assess your risk as well. That's very important too. So it's planning and risk. And the number one thing is don't put the money in front of anything you do. Because I'm saying if you do anything where you have the passion for it, the money comes automatically. Right. So this is something what I see a lot of people having this situation where they just say how much I'm earning, how much I can make from it. But don't ask that question and just let it be. Understand that this is what you love to do. Then it's not a work what you do because it's your life. I always saying that my farm and my work is my life. So it's not work, and therefore automatically now the success will come, because the point is it's not always about the success when you do your things what you love, what there is a passion, because it also makes you overcome if you fail. So it's easier for you to overcome when you fail because you still love what you're doing, right? Yeah. That's why you have a relationship, and sometimes if the relationship have some struggle, you continue to make it up again with your loved one, and then you come again until maybe you can't do it. But this is a little bit a different case. But I'm saying in business, it's all about the passion, and if you don't have the passion, maybe it's better for the person who wants to go, and you have to really invest in your passion. So that is something what many people don't. They want to continue have their party life. They want to have to continue do all the things they love to do, but at the same time, they will neglect their business, which would be their life. So all of that comes automatically. So to me, is planning and to have to find the right passion what you do. Don't become a farmer if you want to be a mechanic. It doesn't make no sense. If you want to be a teacher, yes, you can do it on the side, but I always hear so many people say, oh, I'm doing my second job is to be a farmer. So I say, how many times per week are you at your farm? And then I say, sometimes I check up, I have one uncle for helping me or so forth. I have to be every other day at least at your farm. So you cannot be a farmer or a manufacturer if you can only spend, a day of the week for it. Then better leave it and maybe carry your money to the bank or do some other work, But it's all about the passion. That's my point.
Thank you for that. So passion, persistence, planning, and risk assessment. Loving those tips. Loving that. Derek?
I would say that I agree with everything that's been said, but there are a couple of things that I'd want to add. The tourism industry has a lot of opportunities. The research is critical because you need to identify the niche. If you are a small player in the market, what are the niches that are available to you that you can target? It's important because you have to match your resources with the opportunity that you have available to you. You can take a bite of what you can choose. So you need to figure out what is it I can do, and you build from there. Martin didn't get to where he is by just jumping and trying to bite out the argument. You start where you can, and then you move and build from there. So you have to have a long-term perspective as well.
Yeah.
Too many of our young people, we think in terms of want to buy a car, want to buy whatever immediately. No, you have to postpone those things. You have to have a focus, and that focus must take a long-term perspective. You have to look at this as a 10, 20-year business down the road, right? So you can't expect immediate profit. So having a long-term perspective, doing the research, identify your niches, and I think the motivation, I mean, well, all of us have spoken about that in different ways. We have to be motivated to do what you do. Motivation is driven by love, it's driven by passion, it's driven by love of money, but you must have a motivation for doing it, because that motivation is what is going to, as Martin said, is going to help you over the humps when you have the rough times. You understand? Yeah. And if you have the long-term perspective, you have to think like the Chinese. And there's one Chinese proverb that I always like to use to anchor the mindset. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Yeah. Right? You can become large, you can become Aswad, you can become Allen, but you won't start out getting there immediately. It may be 30 years, in fact, it may not be in your lifetime, but your sons and daughters may in fact be able to carry that forward. So it's important to take a long-term perspective on the business. And I think in addition to what is happening, the networking, the identify, the timing, the desire, those things are also very important. So I think, all in all, I think you have to have a long-term perspective. You have to look out for your niches and match your resources with what you can actually deliver.
Great. Thank you very much, all of you. I mean, I think this has been for me a very enriching conversation, and I really have to say a big thank you to all you guys for sticking with us for 2 hours, because you've really put your thought and your mind into it and really shared your perspectives and your success. And all of you are highly successful at what you do. So I hope that the young people who are listening are really gaining motivation and excitement and enthusiasm from listening to 4 very passionate and very strong advocates today. I have to thank the Tourism Linkages Network, because I think the work that the Linkages Network is doing is phenomenal, but it's also critical to national development. I think we have said that tourism can be a driver of almost every sector in this country. We haven't even gotten into the creative industries and how tourism can be a driver for that. We haven't gotten into the whole services constellation. The point is that we are still at this point, the last things that I've heard from Minister Bartlett say that we are at about 40% retention of the tourism dollar in Jamaica. 40% means that there's still 60% runway to go. So there is still a huge potential in tourism. Tourism is coming back. I mean, we've had a good summer. We are expecting, fingers crossed, vaccination, etc. But we're expecting that we can get back to a really powerful acceleration in the tourism business. And we can get back to 4.3 million tourists, where we were in 2019. If we get back there, we're already seeing that cruise shipping is coming back. Minister Bartlett announced 110 cruises over, I think, the next year, which is quite a lot, So I think the whole outlook for tourism is extremely positive if we play our cards right. And if, as you have all said today, if we plan the value chains, we plan the partnerships, and really look at the development of agriculture and manufacturing, both from a large company and a small company, because it has to be a partnership between all of those. If we look at all of that together, I think we really can make a huge impact on this economy. So it's been a real pleasure and an honor to talk to all of you today. Sorry,
Dan, I have one little point I wanted, because just to touch on something you just triggered a while ago. It is that we need to use the pandemic to retool and reorganize.
Absolutely, absolutely. Never let a crisis go to waste. That is another thing that I think is absolutely spot on. So it's been a joy and a pleasure really to talk to all of you and to learn from you today, because I've learned a tremendous amount listening to all of you. So thank you so much. And thanks to the Tourism Linkages Network, and thanks to the listeners, whoever was online listening to us. If there are questions that we didn't answer today, I'm sure you can get in touch with the technical team and they will send on to us any questions that you have. So we're going to sign off now, and thank you all for tuning in, and thanks everyone for being on this panel. All the
Thank you.
best.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
was mine.
Keep,
Thank you.
keep on, please, getting vaccinated and
Yes.
following the protocol.
I am vaccinated, fully
Okay,
vaccinated.
so am I fully.
From early. I'm not wasting more time. I don't want time to sit down and think about this thing.
Done
As I told
time.
my students, do it
Absolutely.
early, get out of the way, and get on with your life.
Right on.